let's set sail then into this next session. Artificial intelligence is no longer a tool, it's redefining power, influence, and leadership on a global scale. As AI continues to disrupt traditional hierarchies and decision-making, the question is no longer who will lead, but how leadership itself will be redefined. So reimagining leadership in an era of AI and fragmentation will explore bold new perspectives on the future of leadership in a world where fragmentation and technology are new constraints. This session brings together some of Asia's foremost thinkers to navigate this complex landscape, captained ably by Dr. Ganesh Natarajan, one of India's top corporate and social leaders, and a practitioner of dual intelligence. So can I invite Dr. Ganesh Natarajan up onto the stage, please? Please give him a big round of applause. And as we navigate these uncharted waters, the discussion's going to challenge conventional thinking and redefine leadership in the digital age. He has very able panelists with him. Jaspreet Bindra, founder AI Beyond and the Tech Whisperer from the UK. Please give him a round of applause. We have Shrikant Velamakani. Is that right? Okay. Co-founder and Group Chief Executive of Fractal, Vice Chair of NASCOM. Big round of applause, please. Romain de Laubière, Managing Director and Senior Partner at BCGX, Regional Chair for Asia Pacific, and Global Digital Leader of Build for the Future. And finally, Neha Saggi, founder of Addition, Group co-founder of Good Glam Group, and founder Baby Chakra. Big round of applause, please, for the panel. Ganesh, over to you.
Let me make some quick opening remarks from here, and then we'll do the panel. This is a very exciting panel for me for two reasons. One is that Ambassador Bambawale and I have been talking about doing like a series on AI. And some of you who, like me, are loyalists of the Asia Economic Dialogue will remember that last year we had some amazing people. We had the CTO of State Bank of India, we had the chairman of NASCOM, and we were primarily discussing the point that Sanjeev alluded to, which is the applications of AI. Like what he talked about, the agent who completely converts the entire customer, is a classic example of what is today called agentic AI. And we spent a lot of time on applications and how it will evolve. And I think today, like the Trump administration has evolved in 30 days more than we expected, AI has also evolved amazingly in the last 1 year. And we're actually reaching a point when we're saying, hey, AI is real. There's no question. Nobody needs to have any doubts about its relevance. But how do leaders respond? So today, which is, I call it the second in the trilogy, is on leadership response. And when we come back next year on AI, we'll probably talk about dual intelligence, that how humans and AI are coexisting in a paradigm of dual intelligence. So, but that's for next year. I'm giving you a sneak peek of a trailer. But let me just start with a couple of examples. Because when we talk about AI, it's still, if you look at a mental map for most people, it's like, oh, AI is something that's sitting in a box, and occasionally it'll be helpful, occasionally it'll be not, etc., etc. But I'll give you two examples. One is, I was in New York 6 months back and visiting the NBA. For those of you who don't know the NBA, it's the National Basketball Association. Quite possibly, even beyond the IPL, one of the richest sports in the world. And I was talking to their CTO, who, no prizes for guessing, was from Andhra Pradesh, so young man who was really, really passionate about what he was doing. And I was asking him, so what's the future of AI in basketball? He said, do you really want to know? I said, yeah, absolutely, please, tell me. So he says, imagine, and I'm sure most of you have seen these NBA games in the US or watched it on television, and you have a guy called LeBron James, all of 7'3" LA Lakers star, and LeBron can run down the entire basketball court in probably less than 4 seconds. And as you know, the way to shoot a basket is, as he runs down, he'll have 4 defenders coming in front of him, and he has to make a split-second choice, whether to turn left, go 2 more steps, try and run a little more, shoot from there, and try for 3 points, etc., etc. So he's saying what we're trying to do now is through AI, as LeBron is charging down the pitch, okay, we will actually be quickly analyzing the defending patterns of each of the 4 people who have clustered in front of him. And based on a quick analysis of where it's going, we will actually be able to advise LeBron that now he should turn 2 steps to the left, take 1 swerve right, and then shoot the basket. The likelihood of success is going to be 99%. the obvious question will come to your mind, how do you do all this in 4 seconds? And the answer is neural networks. LeBron doesn't have to think. He's automatically programmed to, his leg will turn left 2 steps and 1 right, and then he's shooting the basket. So I asked the next obvious question, is this even legal? And my friend said, no. Krishna said, no, it's not legal, but it's there. Technology can make this happen for you. Example number 2. My wife Uma and I were in New York 2 months back and at a very wonderful session by Yuval Noah Harari. I'm sure most of you are thinkers to know who Harari is. He wrote this amazing book called Sapiens, followed it up with my favorite book on the planet called Homo Deus, which really talks about the evolution of people and the points that Sanjeev was making, that you got to keep evolving to stay in the same place. And he talked about many examples, most of which are there in his new book called Nexus. If you haven't read it, try and pick up a copy. But there he talks about a very grave idea, okay? The Rohingya crisis in Myanmar, okay? And he talks about how it was almost a manufactured crisis of AI. How does that work? And I won't mention the name of the social media site, but you all know it. But he said that, look, there was this very nasty cleric in Myanmar who was posting really, really vile stuff against one community. And of course, there were a lot of sane voices, like we have in this country as well, who will immediately post saying, no, this is not quite true, that's an extreme statement, etc., etc. But he said the algorithm, the AI algorithm within the social media site realized that the cleric was getting much more attention when he posted something than the voices of reason. So they actually muted the voices of reason and magnified the voices of the cleric. So in a sense, they're saying the murders of the Rohingya community in Myanmar could be attributed to AI. Extreme, right? So I thought I'll wake you up in the morning with these 2 examples. But coming down to the topic, what have we chosen to talk about here? We're saying, what is the impact on leaders? Classic examples of people who just got washed away by new technology. Blockbuster Video in the US. If you remember, the minute Netflix came in, a company which was literally in every village in America renting out videos, completely bust and went shop. My own favorite client when I was running this company, Zensar, was Toys R Us. And Toys R Us was at one point of time the most popular toy store across the United States of America. But because of various reasons, I mean, private equity and other things, they kind of lost the plot somewhere. So I'm saying, if leaders are not careful, and if they ignore AI, they're quite likely to lose the plot. And if leaders think that they can master AI because AI can be kept in its box, be careful. And to end with what Harari keeps talking about, AI is not the end of the story. It's going to become AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. It's going to become ASI, which is artificial superintelligence. And we'll see where it goes from there. So the way we're going to run this panel, ladies and gentlemen, is I'm requesting each of my panelists in a sequence for no particular order of Jaspreet, who is a philosopher and thinker and writer on AI. If you haven't read a Jaspreet Bindra column, you've been asleep. Because he literally every day, Jaspreet, in some paper or the other, you'll see Jaspreet. Okay? And then we'll follow that through with getting our friend from Singapore, from BCG on the line, which is Romain. And then we'll come to our young entrepreneur who's actually had 3 serial success stories, Naya. And finally, we'll come to the vice chairman of NASSCOM and the founder and CEO of what I think is the most exciting AI company in this country, if not the world, Fractal Analytics, and ask Srikanth from his NASSCOM position and successful entrepreneur position to give us a picture of what is the future of AI. So this is how we'll do it in the next maybe 20, 25 minutes. And then we'll throw it immediately open to the audience. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask as they, think about it as they speak. And whatever time we'll have, we'll do Q&A and discussions on the future of leadership with AI. Thank you very much. And with that, over to you, Jaspreet.
Thank you very much, Ganesh. Thanks for having me here. I've got a little bug of the biological kind in my throat right now, so I'm sorry if I am a little hoarse. Taking off from LeBron James, Ganesh, the LeBron James of ice hockey, which is as fast a sport, was called Wayne Gretzky. He was like the ice hockey legend. And I spent many years at Microsoft. And the redoubtable Steve Ballmer, who was then the CEO, would quote a particular quote from Wayne Gretzky very, very often in the context of leadership. And what he would say, quote Wayne Gretzky, is that don't skate to where the puck is. The puck is that ball of ice hockey. Skate to where the puck is going to be. And if we kind of now bring in the context of AI, there's so much happening. Almost on a hourly basis, if not daily. And there's just this deluge of information that, for us, for people who are here, who are leaders in different industries, it sometimes becomes difficult to abstract out, what is really happening. And more importantly, where the puck is going to be. Where is it leading up to? Now, much like basketball and ice hockey, the thing which moves at even a faster pace than those two games is AI. So when I say where is it going to be, I'm not talking about 3 years from now or 5 years from now. I'm talking about possibly something which might happen a fortnight from now, okay, or has already happened between the time I thought about it and now, or at least in the next 3 to 6 months. So what I thought what I'll do is, and I believe there's a presentation which is running, what I thought I'll do is just in my 5 to 7 minutes and couple of slides, lay out in a sense for leaders and leadership, abstract out what is happening, what is going to happen, more importantly, where is the puck going to be. So look, AI is not a new technology. It's been there for a long while. In fact, I call AI a tale of 3 papers, like the tale of 2 cities. And the first one was written in 1955-56, that long back, when the word AI was coined, artificial intelligence. And this particular paper set this whole thing in motion. And for the past 60, 65 years, actually there's been a huge amount of work which amazing companies, entrepreneurs like your Srikanth, etc. are doing in AI before the so-called ChatGPT moment, which came from the second paper, which was in 2017 of the labs of what was then called Google Brain. 8 researchers, 2 of them happened to be of Indian origin. The paper was called Attention is All You Need. And this paper invented this new kind of algorithm called the transformer, which led to generative AI, ChatGPT, Claude, etc., etc. And then the last paper actually came in January this year, last month, which was a paper published along with the open source model DeepSeek, which China came out with. And this paper has changed the narrative of AI from what we have known, or at least of generative AI, for what we have known for a few months now. So what I'm going to do is, if you just keep these 3 papers in mind, the 5 or 6 things that I believe where AI will lead, and we as leaders will need to kind of be prepared for that and adjust to that. And these 6, I just wanted to take a minute each to describe the 6 big AI trends, if it may. Some of them are already happening, and some of them will happen as we go forward. And I thought that, let me just figure out what are those. So the first one is where AI is or English is the new coding. So if you remember, when we were growing up, most of us, we were told that the passport to success was learning English. And so we all learned English, and arguably we've been successful. But then, as our children were growing up, they were told that the passport to success is now how to code. And so coding became the new English. With generative AI, actually this reverses. Every time you write a prompt in English or any other language, in ChatGPT or any other such engine, what you're writing actually is code, except that you're writing this code in your natural language, your own language, rather than the machine's language. As Satya Nadella said, rather than you learning the machine's language, the machine is will learn your language. And that is huge, because suddenly you can have 8 billion coders. Remember, all of us become coders. So rather than English becoming the new coding, coding becomes, in a sense, the new English. And Sam Altman said something to that effect here. And this is this vast democratization wave that AI would bring in. And every one of us will need to start thinking differently about how we think of software programmers, coders, etc., as English becomes the new coding. The second thing, which actually is even more profound, is how AI will become the new UI, user interface. How we work with machines. Gartner said something quite profound. It said that, look, AI is just not a technology or a trend. It's a fundamental shift, a profound shift on how humans and machines interact. How humans and machines interact is through user interfaces. And we've had several kinds, graphical user interface, search bars, apps, etc. The new user interface is AI-driven voice. Your phone is not going to look like, in a couple of years, is not going to have those hundreds of apps. There's just going to be like a ChatGPT voice prompt. And you will work with the machine using natural voice, natural human voice, and the machine will respond back and work with you using natural human voice the same way you work with other colleagues. Work will change, therefore, profoundly as AI, in a sense, becomes the new UI. The third one, and you're going to hear this word a lot, is about how agents become the new platform. And this is something Bill Gates put about a couple of years back. And this year, many say, is the year of agentic AI. If today AI applications tell you stuff, AI agents will do stuff for you. And that has, again, many profound implications. I mean, a booking.com will become a booking agent the same way we had a human booking agent. A booking.com gives you information on what to book to travel to Pune. A booking agent, AI agent, will know your earlier Pune trips, where you stay, etc., your flights, and with your permission, actually book something for you. In the enterprise, what that will mean is that there'll be a new SaaS. Software as a service will transition to service as a software. As in an end-to-end process, chunks of it actually get bundled, services get bundled, and an AI becomes that bundles that up and becomes a software which is delivered as a service rather than a service which is delivered as a software rather than software as a service. This has massive enterprise applications which we can't go to today due to lack of time, but that's going to be the third big change. The fourth one, as Mark Anderson said, DeepSeek. So DeepSeek is the new ChatGPT. Now I've exaggerated a little bit here, but what DeepSeek has done with its comparatively lower costs, not the costs which were put out there, but comparatively lower costs, the fact that it's open sourced and the fact that it came from China has changed the narrative of AI forever. I wrote about the K-shaped curve of AI. Much like we have a K-shaped curve of economic recovery, there's the upper K is going to be the big American NVIDIA-driven firms which are going to go for what is artificial general intelligence. And then the lower K, which is going to be the cheaper small language, the DeepSeek-driven kind of models, which are going to produce what I call the artificial good enough intelligence. And that's how it's going to diverge as we go forward, the narrative changes. Fifth is obvious, the fact that the ethics of the technology are going to be as important as the technology itself. Geoffrey Hinton, one of the godfathers of AI, gives a non-zero probability, as he calls it, to AI subjugating, destroying us all. I spent 2 years in Cambridge over the last couple of years, doing a second master's in my late life on AI and ethics. And all of us, as we are driving headlong into AI, whether in government, whether in forums, whether in big tech companies, or whether in our own companies, we'll have to make sure how we make AI safe for humanity, whether it's AI now or as when we go into AGI, and that's going to be a big part of how leaders are going to think. And then the sixth and final, because before I wind up, is a quote not by a very great person, but basically I believe that AI will be the new literacy. So literacy was defined as knowing English, arithmetic, how to read, how to write, how to add. The new literacy will be all of these three, plus how to naturally, innately work with all these AI tools. So in my view, AI is not about upskilling or about training or about deep expertise. It's about basic literacy. If you learn how to work with AI, like if you know a language, you can write a poem, or you can create an essay, or you can read something, or you can get a job, the same way as if you are literate in AI is when you will kind of, as a questions, in a sense, will become the new answers. How well you ask questions is going to be super important. In fact, I've put my money where my mouth is, and my latest small entrepreneurial venture called AI and Beyond is on how to build AI literacy. So these were really the 6 things that I wanted to lay out in front for all of us, as well as the panel, as we go forward on where the puck is going to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jaspreet. And that's a good reason why we call him the tech whisperer, because the idea is to whisper new ideas even before it's kind of started fermenting in our minds. So that's absolutely amazing. Now we're going to move to Romain from Singapore. I hope we have him on video.
Can you guys now, I
Yes.
see you can see me, but can you hear me?
Yes.
And I have to say it's very frightening to see my face so big, even though yeah, anyway, I'll share some content very soon. So as I was saying, so hello to everyone, and thank you for having me. Very sorry for not being able to make it physically with you in Pune, and thanks for the very interesting and thought-provoking ideas that were just shared. I think that was pretty interesting and thought-provoking. I'll start with a bit of a different angle, and I have a presentation to share, a couple of slides to share, if you allow me to do it. And we're coming at it from within BCG, and I see now you can see my slides. Okay, so let me stay with that type of view. We have done a lot of research with AI, obviously. So I lead digital BCG within Asia Pacific. I also lead Build for the Future, which is basically thinking about what it takes for companies to win in the world. And obviously recently AI, and it's been mentioned already, the fast-paced change of AI and disruptions happening all the time. It was just mentioned before, DeepSeek coming and being a Sputnik moment. We've also seen that, since the last 18 months and our friends at OpenAI coming, the pace of disruption, the pace of change has been very high. And so in that context, what does it take for companies to win? And what does it take for leaders to think about in this new AI context? And whereas AI is certainly going to help in decision-making and being more efficient, what does that mean for leaders, and how should they adapt? Where should they invest? And the internal question, I would say, of prioritization in that context and making sure that they can stay ahead of the curve. I was just mentioning where the puck will be rather than where it is right now. And so to do that, we've talked to a lot of people, and we've talked to thousands of individual companies across the world. And what we've seen is that companies who win do 6 things and operate, I would say, differently, quote unquote, in 6 different ways. And you'll see that the leadership aspect here is extremely important as you think about getting into the future and winning in the future. The first one is aligning on a corporate purpose and leadership being unified into their view of what this means and what the company needs to do. This is very 101, I would say, type of thing when you think about corporate strategy, corporate success, which is where do you want to go, what do you want to stand for, and where do you see your future competitive advantage. This is pretty obvious, and none of this will be a penny drop, I think, taken individually. What's important to remember is that winning companies do all of these at the same time and don't take them individually. The second one is about agility and resilience, and how you can have a model for your company that allows for quick decision-making and quick iterations. I think it's something we're very familiar with in the digital world. You can't develop a solution and expect it to be right at the first time. Many companies still have to think about what this means in their processes to avoid the doomed V-cycle and embed agility within. People advantage is very clear. I think many people talk about it, being innovation-driven as well. And maybe the 2 last points, which are a bit more on the technical side, is how do you make sure you're migrated on modern data and tech platforms that allow you to make the good use of AI and to capture the opportunity? And then how do you embed AI for value within your organization? And especially relevant right now, most of my clients ask me, Romain, with Gen AI and AI now, do you have any, we're convinced about the impact, and we're convinced that POCs and small pilots are generating some differences. But do you see companies at scale on those use cases and using Gen AI typically, or even more forward-looking, agentic AI at scale right now? And we do see some companies getting there. and embedding AI with that value lens being one of the critical aspects for success and becoming and staying a leader in the future. So what we've seen as well is that today, when you grade companies and all the thousands of companies I've just mentioned that we surveyed, only 4% of them I would qualify as future built, which means that basically they've deployed the 6 key success factors I just mentioned, and they've been deploying AI at scale across a number of functions. You only see 22% also being in that scaling phase, which is they've deployed AI at scale somewhere in the organization, but it's not embedded everywhere. And then, 75% of companies still in activating, which is discovery mode, POC, pilots, etc., or designing and piloting, trying to scale, but not necessarily getting to scale yet. So the opportunity there for a change and for adopting the technology is huge. And what we see as well is, why would companies do it? I mean, beyond the imperative that we all feel, you see a lot of benefits, both on the financial side. Companies that are future built or scaling grow faster and they generate more return for their shareholders. Overall, they innovate more. And interestingly enough as well, as a kind of corollary to that, their employees and the broader stakeholder view is actually better. And so we see more employee satisfaction for companies that are on the right than companies that are on the left. Maybe 3 final thoughts on what leaders can think about into AI and capturing the AI opportunity and what this means. We see that the leaders are investing more on the topic and rather be forward-looking and looking as to the puck will be, and looking at both on the cost side, what does AI mean on the cost reduction side, but also on increasing revenue. And they're investing about a factor 2 difference with other companies. And so in that, I think also, making the gap between them and the laggards or the followers even bigger as they continue to invest, get the reward from the investment, and so are able to reinvest this into having a deeper lead. So they invest more, and thanks to that, they capture more value. The second thought is they invest on less opportunities. And we've seen many companies invest on tons of things with a bit of a thousand flower bloom type of approach and seeing what sticks and what's going to make a difference. That doesn't work so well. It's quite costly and usually discourages the rest of the organization. What we see is that the winning companies tend to focus more money, as we've seen, on less opportunities. And by doing so, maximizes the chances of success. And so are very deliberate into finding out where the future competitive advantage will be, where it's impacted by AI, and over-investing on these opportunities to make a difference, rather than, I would say, sugarcoating a number of things and then waiting for things to kind of come up by themselves, which usually doesn't work and creates a lot of cynicism as well vis-a-vis the AI initiatives within the organization. And I think that's really one thing for leaders to think about. The last thing I want to share with this group is we've seen the winning recipe for AI adoption and getting results for AI as being the 10-20-70. And this is proven now by the research that we've done around when you want to generate value from digital and as a whole, and AI in particular, many companies tend to focus on the technical aspect of things and expect disruption and changes to happen. What we've seen the winners do is, if I had to, partition the effort and put figures onto this, is 10% of the effort on the algos, very sophisticated part, very specific capabilities, but 10% of the effort, 20% on making sure, and that's the tech platform side of things, that these algos are built on tech stacks, infrastructure that allow them to be scaled and scalable across the company and then to get to the full effect. Many companies are very focused on this 10 and 20, but most of the impact, most of the change, most of the pain, to be honest, comes from the 70, which is all about transforming people, organization, processes. And when you think about impact of AI, changes fundamentally, typically Gen AI in marketing, what the marketers are going to do. And so changes the job description, probably changes as well how you evaluate people, the KPIs, etc., changes the workflow for marketing, all of these things will not happen organically. They'll happen to some extent, but not to the full extent. And to capture the full potential, leaders have to consider that the task is not so much technical as is a fundamental reshape of their organization, their people skills, the processes, the way they evaluate people, etc. So I think we're living exciting times, and wanted to contribute these seed for thoughts in the following conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Romain, because I think it was so right that you ended with that. Like I said, I started off by saying that human intelligence will continue to be more important than artificial intelligence, and we are seeing that. So what we're going to do is now segue into an entrepreneur who's using AI, and of course, somebody who's really building AI for entrepreneurs and the whole corporate world. Naya, yours.
So while Ganesh is very kind and he makes me sound like this amazing serial entrepreneur, reality is I'm on to my third venture, and it's it's pre-seed, right? So I'm going to talk from a very practical lens here on I think based off a couple of the conversations I've had with people over the last year, and also how I see myself practically using AI as I'm building out my venture for the third time in this paradigm, right? At the very heart of it, I mean, I know we've all sort of heard this. Sequoia has called generative AI as foundational technology, as electricity. But, at the very heart of it, I would just emphasize that AI today is actually a question for humanity itself, right? The question that it begs of us is that, are people leading AI or is AI leading people? And, when I think about how that's shaping out, there are 2 points that come to mind, and then I'll dive into the implications of those 2 points across nation and leadership as nations, industries and leadership as industries, and individuals, and our leadership of ourselves in this new paradigm. The 2 questions that AI and humanity are at not odds with, but have to sort of balance and, work with each other on are, number one, AI is actually fundamentally challenging or enhancing, as you look at it, what it means to be human. We used to think creativity, design, the arts, storytelling, narration, right, was all the domain of being human. I was in a chat last week with the co-founder of Canva, Cam, and we were talking about how AI is actually taking over that entire paradigm, is actually creating design which we haven't seen before as human race, and doing it at human scale, democratizing to tools of design. So it's no longer just I would say what humans would do. It's something that machines do. And secondly, if you really look at it, by I think 2030 or 2035, the numbers predict that there will be more robots on Earth than human beings. $40 billion to catapult AI and research and the infrastructure around AI. India today, with the India AI mission, has set aside $1.5 billion. Now, why are these numbers suddenly important? Because AI, and we all know this, has become a matter of national sovereignty and national supremacy. And therefore, the money that's going into AI has not just an impact on how we look at the technology that's powering us ahead as nation states, but also the ripple effect into things like quantum, into things like biotechnology, into things like healthcare, into things like defense. And therefore, I think a question that as nations we need to ask ourselves is how are we disproportionately not just investing today in AI or into future technologies, or frontier technologies we'd like to call it, but how are we predicting what else do we need to invest in going forward, and how do we get the information or the knowledge on things that are pretty much beyond our comprehension, because these are these are S-curves which are completely unprecedented. So I think there's this whole piece on the investment and the prediction on the investments that nations have to reconcile themselves with. The second under the nation piece is that I do think that nations play a disproportionately important role in AI. I was speaking at Labasna, the Missouri Academy for IAS and IPS officers, and the one word that I used consistently through my conversation with all the IAS and IPS officers, of about 1,500 of them, the entire batch, was social engineering. what we are going to encounter and what we are already encountering as human beings is a very different paradigm, both emotionally, mentally, physically, financially. And the one platform I still do believe that has the convening power to bring all stakeholders together are the governments in every country. And that was my pitch, if you will, to the newly sort of minted IAS, IPS officers, IRS officers, that the one role, we're not saying please, like most of us as entrepreneurs would say stay out of our way, stay out of our lane to the government, right? But the one role the government can really play a disproportionate role in is actually a convening force, bringing industry, bringing research, bringing technologists, bringing startups together, bringing civil society together, to economists together, to really reimagine a new paradigm of social engineering that this AI paradigm will require of us. Moving on to industry, we are talking about more than 300 million jobs being displaced or being replaced by AI across the world. That's not a small number. What does that mean, therefore, for us as industry? Microsoft recently announced a $3 billion investment in India, and it's promised to commit to upskill more than 10 million people in India on AI skills. There's a very, very powerful role that industry X AI play in this entire paradigm of reshaping and reskilling its workforce to meet the new paradigm. But what does it also mean? It means as leaders, we need to sit and think about, okay, how do we reimagine our workflows? Because if I look at manufacturing, I had the privilege of visiting 5 manufacturing establishments, very large, both at SEZs as well as domestic tariff zones in India over the last 2 months. They talk about completely autonomous manufacturing, but that will be the future. It's not just one segment on completely autonomous manufacturing with robots taking over the world. That will be the new future. And therefore, what does it mean for the entire set of people around, the population around, the workforce around that we have cultivated and nurtured? And what role will they play in the new paradigm when we have robots running our factories? Just in manufacturing, that's just one example. Media. You could actually create a fully edited, fully transcribed video in less than 30 seconds now. It need not even be your face, right? We all know that. It is a generative AI avatar of you. What does it mean for how media creativity will evolve? What does it mean for that disruption? That entire industry is ripe for disruption. So I think as leaders in industry, we have to think about our people and also what it means for the shifts in the creation process itself of the products we make. And then going back to the individual. I mean, as an entrepreneur this time around, my first company, I had a team of we started small, of course, but we started with a team of about 4 or 5 people. Someone was doing data, analysis, labeling, etc. Somebody was doing video creation. Somebody was doing product design. This time around, I have a team of 3 people, and I have 2 other members who are AI agents. That literally is my team. We get onto a Zoom call, and the AI agents, my agentic team members, are actually part of that team meeting. They're actually participating. That is the new paradigm. The bet that me and Srikanth and I are both part of the Tech Entrepreneurs Association of Mumbai team. And something that as entrepreneurs we discuss extensively is that the future where there is a one person, $1 billion company is actually not very far. And that is the reality that we are seeing play out even in our workflows today. I'm building out a new age consumer electronics company, which is design-led, intelligent, as well as looking at relevant new features. That's my third venture. In the entire design and the consumer insighting and the go-to-market process, right? In the design process, Stable Diffusion, Canva, we're using all of these tools to actually accelerate the design, the CAD process much faster than a traditional appliance manufacturer would, or a traditional hardware or device maker would, right? We are looking at launching in 6 months, while the same product would have been launched in 2 years by a regular player. And that's on the back of all the investments, hardly us investing, but like the access we have to AI and to generative AI to really help us leapfrog that. Consumer inciting. We're using a lot of the tools that come in already with Helium 10 or with the Amazon backend inciting models or with our own sort of consumer insighting models that we develop grounds up to basically get access to what is the market data telling us about what consumers want, and we're able to preempt, predict before most sort of research industry reports will be out. I mean, I am so excited about the future. I think it just requires a very practical perspective, though, into a world where there are opportunities galore, which is the entire web as we know it will be reshaped to actually accommodate agents interacting with the web, right? We're looking at quantum and the leaps that we are seeing that were just announced recently. And more importantly, we are looking at, I think, still going back, and what I said in the very beginning, and I'll close here, going back to a recognition that truly what makes us human is what will make humans lead AI versus AI leading humans. So I'll stop here. I'm sure there are lots of questions and thoughts.
Thank you,
after
Naya.
this.
That was really eloquent. And I completely hope and agree with you that out of the 150 plus unicorns and so many other entrepreneurs starting new companies, at least some of them will manage to do both AI and humans and not just make it a completely AI and robotics factory. I still remember a few years back I was in Japan and the Toyota folks were actually in their boardroom in Toyota. And they showed me one slide saying, can you imagine what this is? And that was just one dark slide with a little white dot somewhere in the top right-hand corner. So I was like, no, tell me, I just can't get this. So he said, this is the Toyota factory at full production in the night shift last night. So everything is robotized. And he said, you don't need human beings at all. Everything is automated. The quality assurance is automated. The simulation is automated. What we do in Honeywell, which is AI-enabled automation, was absolutely in progress. So of course I had to ask that question, saying, what is that little white light? It was the watchman going around just to make sure everything was fine. So no productive manpower there. I think this is the future. And I'm sure you must have read last week that the first AI CEO was appointed in China last week. So if you all think that we will be leaders and we will manage AI, here's one indication of, they trust AI to be a better CEO than human beings. So it's very, very interesting. So I'll now move to Srikanth. And Srikanth, I was just reading your amazing interview in Mint this morning, where he talks about his entire company, which is due to go public very shortly, is AI. It's completely around AI. And of course, he's talking about agentic AI as the future. So tell us, paint the canvas of what we should expect now and in the future.
So one good thing about going last in a series of excellent speakers is that they have done all the heavy lifting already, and I have to just build on top of that. Okay, let's ask ourselves this question. What does leadership look like in the age of AI? And I'm going to split leadership into 3 levels: self-leadership, company leadership, and country leadership. Okay? And let's first start by looking at, I want to ask you a question. When is the last time you observed the marginal cost of a product going to zero? Think about telephone calls. Seeing the audience in the room, I can feel that all of you were around when we used to pay 32 rupees a minute to make phone calls, right? And nowadays we don't think about that. It's 0 rupees a minute. Think of video calls, 0 rupees a minute. Think of storage, almost zero. Think of taking a picture. My Google Photos told me last year, at the end of the year, that I took 13,000 pictures on my camera over the year. I didn't think of the storage cost. I didn't think of the cost of taking the pictures, because the marginal cost of the product has become zero. So what happens when the marginal cost of a product goes to zero? Usage skyrockets, right? So I'm going to tell you here that the marginal cost of intelligence is going to zero. The marginal cost of getting some AI to answer a question or bring some intelligence into any product, process, service has gone to zero. Which means that almost everything that you think of today will be AI infused. Any product, your smartphone, to your microwave, to any process, think of a trade finance process, or think of any process in any business, to any service. Every single product, process, service will be AI infused. And we will not even think about it because it's so obvious. It's so obvious, like internet is infused everywhere because the marginal cost of the internet is zero for most of us. So what does it mean in that world? We already, I think Sanjeev spoke very eloquently that we'll have productivity improvements, we'll have customer experience improvements, we'll have greater accuracy, right? These are the three key things. Greater accuracy in every product service process, greater productivity, more gets done in fewer time, and there will be greater customer experience because everything will be much more human. Like I think Naya also talked about how customer service or experience of AI will become much more human. AI will make it more human. Now in that world, what does it mean to lead self, lead an organization, and lead the world, right? So leading yourself, there's no way you can afford to not use AI every single day. You have to use, because people who use AI will outperform and replace people who don't use AI. AI is the most interesting, amazing technology that's come up in the last many years. So we all have to accept it and use it in our own lives. So that's sort of more or less obvious. But what does it mean in terms of skilling, reskilling? What are the kinds of things I need to be prepared for? If I have a 50-year career, I may have to learn multiple times. So I have to prepare for that. I have to have critical thinking because you can't, AI will give you some answers, but you'll have to figure out what is right for you or what is right versus what is wrong. So the moral clarity or the factual clarity or factual accuracy of a solution, you need to have that critical thinking skill and need to have all those uniquely human skills which hopefully will stay unique for some more time, like empathy and compassion and humor and things like that, which will bring to the world. So that's about human personal leadership or individual leadership. Let's go to company leadership. In 2016, the CEO of Uniqlo made the statement that I'm not a fashion retailer, I'm a tech company. In 2018, L'Oreal CEO said that, look, we are not a beauty company, we are a beauty tech company. In 2018, MasterCard CEO Ajay Banga also said, look, we are not a financial services company, we are a tech company that happens to be providing financial services. I think Sanjeev more or less may have said the same statement, because what is a bank and what is a financial services company except that it's technology plus risk, right? That's all. It's technology plus risk management. That's it. That's banking for you. So if you think about that, every company is becoming tech. That means tech will become an increasingly important part of how we spend the dollars, right? 3 to 10% of revenue we're going to spend on tech, and we're going to use tech to increase productivity, increase user efficiency, user effectiveness, or increase intelligence in the process, like we just discussed. Let's coming to country, right? Now, actually, let me stay on the theme of the company. In this kind of a transition, leadership is most important in an era of uncertainty. We know that AI is very exciting, but it's also creating extraordinary uncertainty in the world, right? Because we don't know what's going to happen. It's really difficult to predict how the economy will move a year or 2 years from now, given the kinds of disruption that are happening. Take Meta, for instance. Went from 88,000 people to 63,000 people in 1 year and increased revenue. So if they can reduce the workforce by 25% and still grow by double-digit revenue growth, what does that mean in terms of disruption, right? So in that era, we need leadership. So what are the 4 things we need as a leader of a tech company or of any company today? Number 1 is we have to think about what happens to AI safety, responsible AI. We have to think of job displacements, and we have to think of retraining and reskilling. So let's go one by one. We know that job losses will happen, but as a leader, can I bring in the kind of empathy and the kind of compassion to make sure that this transition is handled in a safe and in a humane way? I think that's where leadership is required. We will need retraining because, like I said, 50-year careers cannot be built in one company doing one thing anymore, which means that any leader of a company has to make sure that they are able to retrain their workforce. They have an orientation to learning and growth of the people that they hire. That's 2. 3 is before AI safety and all the gloom of AI, we need to think of responsible AI, which is AI ethical? Is AI biased? Is it fair? Is it transparent? Things like that, right? So there is a whole framework of responsible AI, but it's not obvious. We have to bring that into every single conversation. And lastly, AI safety. There are big gloom and doom scenarios of AI. One of them is that you have the right objective for the AI. You're asking the AI to do the right thing, but in the process it does something catastrophic. For example, you want to reduce carbon emissions and you say, AI, please reduce carbon emissions, but it realizes in the process of reducing carbon emissions that all these human beings are really creating more global warming, so let's kill all the human beings. So good objective, but poorly executed because the system has not been designed well. So how do you design an AI system to be safe? So those are the things that you have to think of as a company leader. Lastly, I'll come to as a country. It has become a huge geopolitical issue today to have the greatest and latest AI, because AI is so powerful and it could create the kinds of geostrategic advantages that will lead a country to be dependent. We've had colonization. What about digital colonization? It might be possible. US could restrict export of chips. It could restrict export of AI technology, which means that a country that does not have access to the latest AI technology, doesn't have access to the chips, may have to, suffer in the negotiation process. So in that world, what do you do as a country, as a leader of a country? I have 4 points there. Number one, we have to first leverage AI. Government is the biggest user of AI. We were doing a project for the government of India on open government data initiative, and one department, we figured out that they had 130,000 databases. 130,000 databases, not data, rows in a data set, not data sets, it's 130,000 databases they had. So government has enormous amounts of data that it can leverage to improve citizen efficiency. So that's about leveraging. Second is about facilitating the growth of AI. How do you create an ecosystem? Investing in AI companies, creating the digital public infrastructure for AI companies to thrive. How do you make sure that you have a regulatory environment where a company can actually build AI stuff? So how do you facilitate the growth of AI? Then is about preparing the country for disruption. There will be job losses. India is producing 1 million people to the workforce every month. India is the only major country in the world that's actually adding to the workforce today as we speak. So over the next 8 years, we would have added 100 million people to the workforce, and we don't have options for jobs. So how do you prepare a country for that kind of disruption, and how do you create jobs? That's the fun. Third one, and the fourth one is governing the rise of AI, which is about making sure that there is safety and governance and ethical AI in the way we look at it. India already has a responsible AI framework, but those are the 4 things that the country can do. So just to summarize, AI is going to change our world in a very significant way. And as the marginal cost of AI goes to zero, we will use AI everywhere. And that poses the most significant test of leadership that we have seen so far as technology is concerned. Hand it back to you, Ganesh.
Thank you very much, Srikanth. I think that was really, really useful. I do have one question, but before that, we still have 11.23 minutes left. So feel free to ask questions. Yeah, I'll come to you. So Srikanth, one question to tee it off. See, there's a lot of views on, you just mentioned, US may stop export of NVIDIA chips, and who knows what Sam Altman will do. But I think the whole DeepSeek phenomenon has showed that China will innovate in spite of embargoes and everything else. And I think all of us, including India, are emboldened to say we'll do LLMs, we'll do everything else. So where do you think this will fall off? Will governance come to a lesser level as Trump is promising? Will it go even higher as Europe is promising? Where will India fall out? What is NASSCOM's recommendation? Where do you go from here? In the whole governance issue. Light governance, heavy governance, control, no control.
So my point of view on this is that AI is still in its infancy. What DeepSeek has shown is that the AI race is nowhere in the final stages of its evolution. It's in the very early stages of its evolution. It's the first chapter of this book, not the last chapter of this book. And in India for example, we claim we have 1.4 billion population, so we want to have a very important say in the world of AI. I have a shloka it's a poem from Ramdhari Singh Dinkar to address that. He says, क्षमा शोभती उस भुजंग को जिसके पास गरल हो उसको क्या जो दंतहीन विषरहित विनीत सरल हो. In other words, if forgiveness is appropriate for someone who has strength. So for us to ask for this massive say in the world of AI without having the strength is is ludicrous to me. So first I would say build the strength, build AI competitiveness before asking for a seat on the table. I think we have the capital, we have the talent, and we can do it. So my push would be, instead of trying to over-regulate it right now, let's build excellent, amazing capacity, and then we'll have a say in everything. China didn't have a say in this till DeepSeek came along. So what is our DeepSeek equivalent is what we have to work towards.
No, that's amazing because some of you who were here yesterday will remember Kiran Majumdar saw saying exactly the same thing, saying that if we have to be a research partner to the US, let's invest in our own research much more than we're doing at 0.67%. And I think Srikanth is echoing the same thing. AI, we can't wake up and say we are also in the party. We have to prove that we have the right to be at the high table of AI, and that's a different topic altogether. Yes, questions? Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my question is...
If you're asking anybody specifically, ask, otherwise general, don't worry.
It's a general question. I think it's really based on what Romain presented on the 10, 20, 70. What is the point for all the leaders to start restructuring their organizations based on how AI is going to be the core? That's one question. And also for leaders, what is that equilibrium of AI-based judgment versus human judgment when taking decisions or executing the day-to-day business?
So, Romain, I'll let you answer this. The question is that what is the point in which leaders must say we will restructure, reorganize our own organizations? And the second is, how do leaders decide when to let AI take the decision and when they have to decide themselves?
Thank you for the question. I think the point where leaders need to say and think about reorganization is very early on. But I think the difficulty here is you need to go into AI transformation and making sure you're going to reap the benefits of AI transformation with the intent of transforming the way you operate and the way you work. The way you're going to change kind of depends on what you're going to find along the way of your AI transformation. So I think that's part of the difficulty, which is we all know it in the digital world. You know what you're starting, you don't know exactly when it's going to end and what things are going to look like in the end, except that if it's well done, it's going to work. I think it's the same. So it's very important for leaders to be intentful about the fact that it's going to change, it's going to be painful, it's going to be deep. But what exactly it's about will need to be figured out as you roll out the AI use cases and see how in reality it's going to impact. So that's one. On the other one, the equilibrium and the help in decision making somehow and what inputs to consider be between human instincts and AI. I think at this point AI is able to provide leaders with a lot of facts and a lot of help in decision making into making the facts easier to understand, maybe also more reliable to some extent. I do think that there's a lot to be improved on everything about the context that's should be at the top of every significant decisions leader take. So I think at this point, many leaders don't rely probably enough or don't leverage AI enough in their decision making. That's probably where we stand. I think in the future, I don't see it yet. I think it might happen as we go into AGI, ASI, etc. But a world where AI is predominant in the decision making. I do think it's under leveraged right now. But I do think because of these contextual aspects that as a leader and especially as a CEO typically or an ExCom member are very important as to how the broader stakeholders, political ecosystem, business ecosystem, your suppliers, your customers are going to react to what it is you're actually going to do. It's very difficult to rely mostly on AI, obviously. I know of no company that's mostly AI driven in top strategic decision making at this point.
Thanks, Romain. Any questions? Any others? I see a lot of hands. Yeah, go ahead, please, Deepak. Can you get him a mic, please? I'll come back to you.
Hi, I'm Deepak Shikarpur. I used to work in Tata Technologies and my username in Tata Technology was DeepSeek. So I don't know who stole my identity, but perhaps I'm going to sue that company. Okay, that's a different issue. But my question to all of you is, I'm a Marathi author, I live in Pune, and I use generative AI for last 1.5 years. And I can tell you that knowledge of generative AI on native Marathi is very poor. So we have an issue of local languages. For example, head in Marathi is called differently in different tones. Language changes every 10 kilometers. For example, Doka is head, Mastak is head, Takkura is head, and AI doesn't understand beyond Doka. So I don't know where regional languages are concerned. Unfortunately, none of you spoke about this aspect of India.
currently, today's state of the nation, as far as AI is concerned, is that it understands most languages, most commonly spoken languages, but it's not very, very good at many languages except a few of the most major languages. That's because the underlying data is not rich enough. So the one way to think about any AI model is it's a multiplicative effect of data, compute, and techniques. So if you have better and more data multiplied by much more computing horsepower, and then you use better and better learning algorithms, like the attention is all you need that Jaspreet mentioned. So if you multiply these three, you have the lowest error rate or highest accuracy. The thing with Marathi, for example, especially if you go to dialects and if you go to various interior Maharashtra and look at that, you may not have the data sets that represent that knowledge. Having said that, this is, my opinion, a temporary phenomenon. And this will get solved by itself as more and more data sets get embedded into the way LLMs are pre-trained. This is the whole era of pre-training. So you get more data sets, it'll solve for itself. It'll happen because the popular data sets are running out, so people will go and make these deals to get more and better data sets. For example, there are multiple Maharashtrian TV channels. So if somebody were to say, okay, let's take the last 20 years of programming on Marathi channels and take that content and train an LLM, it will automatically get better at solving that problem. My trouble with taking this too seriously is that this is an India stance that, hey, we need to build Indian language models, let's bring in incorporate India values. It's a red herring, in my opinion. This problem, all the models will automatically solve for itself. What we instead have to focus is what do these models do in helping us progress towards AGI? That is a real question here, because it's not about language, it's about getting things done in the world, action, like agents and things like that Jaspreet also mentioned. So if you want to get things done, language is a means to an end, but it's not an end in itself. So what we have to do is to build these very powerful models that can solve and do things in the world. And language they will learn in the meantime. I don't think we need to worry about it. It's maybe a 2-3 year thing. And it's also a function of how many customers are interested in it, right? If there is economic incentive, this will get done very, very quickly. That's also another factor underlying the language evolution.
So can we get in your question? Yeah, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, Ganesh, you can decide who will take the question. It's actually for enterprises. Somehow I thought that the emphasis is more on innovation around AI. What about just identifying the good wrapper products? Because we are seeing excellent wrapper products, like in marketing, which is my specialization. Amazing products which incorporate AI. So, the split of 70% on processes and people, it may be that you can just focus on the 70% because AI products are out there. Any opinion on that? Is every enterprise expected to kind of like really do a deep dive and innovate?
I think there will be incredibly good tools out there, right? The biggest opportunity, in my opinion, in any enterprise today is the ability to reimagine every business process with AI. So far, what we have done is there is an existing business process, and we're putting some band-aids and lipsticks and so on to solve for whatever is a new AI availability. But it can dramatically change if you rethink and reimagine the process with AI. I'll give you one example. Think of something like food photography, right, which is very interesting in marketing as well. Let's say I'm a soup company, and I have all my recipes on my website, and then I have all these dishes, pictures of these dishes that you can do with the food that I produce and sell. Now, to actually have this photography done, it takes roughly about 4 weeks to get those photographs done. It costs 5,000 euros per picture, because you need a food stylist, you need a photographer, you need a chef, you need a kitchen, and you need to bring all the ingredients and then cook it and then take pictures of it, etc. So it's a very involved process, expensive process, and then you put those pictures on your website. Now, if you can reimagine this process thinking with AI, right, what is the right kind of prompting? How do you make sure that it is consistent with your brand guidelines? What are the ingredients? And therefore, what should the picture be? You can reimagine this process. You can get a picture in 1 or 2 cents per picture, and it will be much better than the ones that you take with, let's say, with the current process. So what I would encourage is to everyone to think about reimagine the business process. And maybe that's what this earlier speaker was mentioning, that you have to, this process reimagination is actually the hard part. It's not just about using a tool. Tool is, of course, there are very good tools out there, they'll get better. But how do you take that tool and reimagine your business process and embed those tools and techniques into the way you think and solve problems?
Fantastic. I know a lot of hands are up, but forgive me, but we have a coffee break after this. Just catch your speaker. Can we just get some quick 30-second closing thoughts from you, Naya and Jaspreet?
So I did want to actually address an element of your question. I think it's super important in terms of thinking about how our language, our narrative, and our voice kind of comes into the creation of the new paradigm of AI and all that we see. I think one, of course, is that you're probably familiar that we do have a Bharat GPT being invested in, which is a partnership between IIT Bombay, IIT Chennai, and then, of course, with Reliance. And that's led by Professor Ganesh, and that's really trying to bring to forefront how India can build a foundational LLM of its own, right? And therefore incorporate some of this. But I think the second really interesting thing, and that's where the commercialization that will propel this forward, is actually my prediction that ambient AI will be prevalent in all our lives in the next 5 years. Right now, we're talking about AI in a paradigm where it's largely on our screens, on our phones, right? But the reality is that what we're seeing right now is how does it percolate into our physical lives? And the way we would interact with ambient AI would be through hardware and through voice. And therefore, it comes back to your point. The minute it becomes commercially viable to make products and devices in ambient AI, and voice being the primary channel or gestures, as the case may be, all of your concerns will get mitigated, because when people talk and those people are buying those products, the backends will actually ensure that these words get acknowledged for the nuances that they have, and then the devices will take action accordingly. So I think next, not 5 years, maybe actually 2 to 3 years, we'll see a lot of percolation on innovation on the hardware and the ambient AI side.
Thanks, Naya. Jaspreet?
Two quick things, both following from what you said and you said. Look, you go back into human history, we are very good at building tools. We call them technologies. And with some of these fundamental tools, the GPTs, the general purpose technologies, not the chat GPT, new eras come in, new revolutions. We invented a set of tools, agricultural revolution, democratized food. Invented a set of tools, industrial revolution, democratized labor. We democratized information with internet and search, made it accessible to everyone. Today, we are entering the intelligence revolution. Basically, we're inventing a set of tools, AI being the most important of them, and then now quantum coming soon, which basically will make intelligence free, accessible for everyone. And the age of AI is upon us. We don't have a choice in this. Either we embrace it end to end, or we get left out. And that brings me to the second point, and Naya alluded to that the more AI becomes intelligent, capable, AGI, ASI, etc., the more human we will need to be. We have actually become a little like AI. We can become very repetitive. We become very automated. Our educational systems, corporate environments actually have destroyed our human capabilities of curiosity, for example, asking the right questions, which are what prompts are, or passion, or learning new things. We cannot, quote unquote, defeat AI by becoming more like AI. We have to become more human in this age of AI. Those are the two things I'd like to leave with.
Awesome. The first book I read on knowledge management was a book called Strange How Much We Have to Know to Know How Little We Really Know. Very complicated. Same thing is true for AI. The more you talk about AI, the more you realize your ignorance about AI. So I think I'm going to request Dr. Mashelkar and Gautam to maybe do a one-day convening, like a confluence in AI, where everybody is interested in a real deep dive, can actually participate, speak, and that'll be wonderful. But thank you very much. I think you'll agree all. I'm sure you'll all agree they're wonderful speakers, huge depth of knowledge, and thank you for Gautam for enabling this. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Ganesh and his panel. Can I invite Prashant Girbane up as the Secretary General of PIC to felicitate our guests? I think he did a great job. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause. To Naya. To Jaspreet. and to Shrikant. And I hope we're going to have one sent over to Romain. We will make sure. Thank you so much, Romain, for being online.